Alright, what's up, guys? This is CSP, and today I'm back again with another Pokemon TCG video. Today we're talking about budget decks for the 2016-2017 format. So first off, I just kind of wanted to go in what I mean by when I say budget. Generally, I'm talking about, avoiding the big meta favorites, looking at Mega Mewtwo, Mega Rayquaza. Looking at underused or undervalued cards, making concessions for budgetary reasons. This includes avoiding the cool full arts and maybe the reverse foils. Side note, generally, it's cheaper to buy singles or trade, with local people and friends and things like that, as opposed to buying packs or boxes trying to find what you need. Just an FYI. I know it may look expensive, like I've got to pay this much just for this card, but in the long run, it's generally cheaper. So why is this important? Generally, it's a good entry point for new players. I always recommend, not coming in, spending all your money on the big new deck just for 2 weeks later for it to just not be relevant anymore. Going with that, it's avoiding the hype deck, especially going in early, like with this new rotation. We don't know what the meta is. Right now, it's all theory and just people talking about what the good deck is, what the best decks are, and things like that. We won't know till, maybe a month from now, 2 months from now, when there's been some tournaments and things like that, and people have been able to test, and you've seen what's viable, what's not as consistent as we might have thought. Another thing is, especially right now, it's been a big, hot button topic, but prices on cards have just shot through the roof with inflation and things like that. So, avoiding that kind of stuff and, going a little cheaper route, we can avoid that. Maybe here in a little while, things will settle back down and prices will be a little bit more reasonable. And we can go and, then buy some of the more expensive cards. And also, just going outside of the box, working on more strategy necessarily than other things, and working around things and things like that. Restraint's always good for your creativity. So working around it, and you become a better player when you do things like that. So just kind of going over it, why are cards expensive? First and foremost, expensive cards are, just it's part of playing a trading card game, whether it be Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever it is. There's going to be cards. The popular cards are going to be more expensive. Just how it is. Also, Worlds just ended, so popular cards generally go up in price. Looking at you, Audino, Mega Audino. What a card that was, like $2 or $3 is now like $8. Mega Audino sitting at like 15. That's hype more than anything. Also, with new rotation, brings new strategies, revives old ones. Things like Night March are gone, so Mega Ray and Mega Mewtwo are usable again. So people are trying to get out and get those cards, and so that's just going to shoot up the price of those. People want to trying new things and things like that. So also, before, whenever you'd win a Pokemon tournament, all the monetary value you would get would be in scholarship. But recently they've changed this where you can get cash if you choose. And because of that, people who weren't playing before or who weren't playing seriously before, they're playing seriously now. They want to make that money. So because of that, people are going out and they're buying any type of card that is remotely relevant. Whether they think it's good, think it could be good, they're going to buy it so they can throw it in a deck and they can find out. And then lastly, expensive cards are always going to be expensive. Shaymin EX. It's not going to get much cheaper. It's just what it is. So I just wanted to go over a few of the staples and kind of price points and everything like that. VS Seeker is $10. That's usually like a card you need in your deck, unfortunately. Right now it's sitting at 10, which is pretty cheap for it. Theoretically, here in the next few weeks, it could potentially be going down with some stuff that's coming out, which I will cover at the end of the video. But It's $10. It's not too bad. You might be able to find a deal getting them, 3 or 4 at a time. But it's one of those cards, generally, you're going to be running at least 3, generally 4. In is just a fantastic card. It's actually gone up in price a little bit. Not too long ago, you could get them way cheaper, but they're sitting about $3 right now. Fortunately, you usually only run 1 to 2 of those. Professor Sycamore is pretty much the staple of staples. It's in just about every deck. It needs to be in just about everybody deck. At least 3, as many as 4. It's not as pricey. It's a card that most people probably already have. But generally, they're running about $1.50, $1.60 a piece. Next up is Ultra Ball. Goes the same along with Professor Sycamore. 3 to 4 of them. Again, most people already have a bunch of these, but if not, they're not very expensive. They're about 40, 50 cents a piece. Next up is Lysander. Same kind of thing. You probably already have it. If not, you only need 1 to 2 of these. I recommend generally 2. And they run about 70 cents a piece, so not too bad. And then Trainer's Mail. This is a card that's kind of back and forth. The price range is gonna go up and down. I've seen it as low as like $2.50, $3. Right now it's sitting about $4.50, $5. A little bit of the inflation, so it'll come down. But that's another card. Usually, at least 3, sometimes 4. And then, of course, I'm not going to necessarily cover it, but Shaman EX, one of, is recommended at least in almost every deck, but it's sitting at like $60 right now, just the regular card. So we're going to kind of steer away from that. Alternatives to Shaman, you have Octillery, which is still sitting about $10. So just to keep in mind. All right, so first deck we're going to cover is probably the cheapest of all the decks that I'm going to talk about today. And it is Fight Alone Lucario. It's a Stage 1 Lucario from Fates Collide. 110 HP, Steel type. All that's largely irrelevant. Its first attack, Vacuum Wave. It's fine. Probably not going to use it. The highlight here is its second attack, Fight Alone, for a Steel and a colorless energy. Does 30 plus damage. If you have fewer Pokemon in play than your Pokemon, this attack does 60 more damage for each Pokemon fewer that you have. So basically, the concept would be Lucario is your active. You only have 1 Pokemon on the bench, but your opponent has 3 or 4 Pokemon. You're dealing 60 more damage for each Pokemon more that they have. So against like Mega Ray or things like that, you're dealing stupid amounts of damage for 2 energy. And we compare that with cards like Captivating Pokepuff, which says, you look at your opponent's hand, and if they have any basic Pokemon, you can put them on the bench. Another cool side effect of Captivating Pokepuff, depending on when you play it, like if you go first, things like that, if they have a Shaman EX or a Hoopa in their hand, you can just drop that and play it, and the effect is null. I mean, granted, with Hoopa, you probably want them to play that, because they're going to be stacking their bench, but with Shaman, you can drop that, and then they can't play the setup, use the setup ability. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, Lucario, it's a very basic concept deck. You're only really running 4 Lucario, 4 Riolu, and then maybe like a Cobalion. I've seen versions with Talonflame, which is fine, because you're really only going to end up with 1 of those on your bench, and you can search for cards and things like that. It gets a little bit more expensive going Lucario, but pricing this deck out, depending on what you have and what you don't have, if you were to go from, ground zero, building all the way up, you're looking about $75, which is really cheap. The most expensive cards that you're going to have in that deck are like VS Seekers, Inns, and Trainer's Mail. Alright, next up, we've got Raikou, Magnezone, Mew. Raikou is... Everyone knows Raikou. It's an old card. It's been used before in the past, especially with Magnezone. But that doesn't make it any less relevant. It's been very strong in the past. It has potential to be very strong moving forward, especially in a format with Mega Rayquaza, everyone's running Shaman, things like that. Raikou, let's go over him. You know, he's got 120 HP, basic. His ability, Shining Body, as long as he's got a lightning energy attached, you're reducing every attack done to him by 20 damage. So it effectively makes him 140 HP Pokemon. You combine that with the Fighting Fury Belt, is 160 HP, theoretically 180 HP. You're looking at like EX Pokemon right there. Except Raikou's only like $253. And then his attack, Thunderlance, is really good. For every lightning attack or lightning energy on him, his attack does 20 more damage. It's already a base 50. So just by having lightning energy on him to do his attack, you're already doing 160. Say you're attacking Rayquaza, Mega Rayquaza, that's already a one-shot. Just for your standard energy with weakness. His weakness is fighting. It's not super popular right now, so you don't have to really worry about that. Where Raikou gets really good is cards like Magnezone. It's a stage 2, which isn't too hard to get out anymore. You know, you got things like Rare Candy, Wally. I mean, you can just straight up evolve him, I mean, if you have to. But all you're really interested in with Magnezone is his ability, Magnet Circuit. You know, as often as you like during your turn, you can attach a lightning energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. So you can, you know, plop 2 on one Pokemon, plop 3 on Raikou, plop 3 on something else, 2 on some, depending on how many you have in your hand. And so it works really well with a Pokemon like Raikou, who has that scalable damage. You know, just by increasing his energy count, you increase his damage output. You know, and we have tons of stings in the card game right now to get cards in your hand, energy into your hand, especially with Lightning. You've got supporters like Clement, which lets you put 4 just straight in your hand. You know, you've got Professor's Letter, put 2 into your hand. Fisherman, put 4 from your discard pile into your hand. So getting the Magnezone out, you can really accelerate and start doing big amounts of damage. I included Mew on here. It might sound a little awkward, but hear me out with Mew. Basically, it's a Psychic Pokemon. It's a basic type. It has free retreat, but really its main thing is its ability, Memories of Dawn. It can copy, as long as it's your active, it can copy any of your other Pokemon that are on your bench attacks. So you could copy Raikou's attack, things like that. And what makes it significant is because it's Psychic, and it can hit Mega Mewtwo Y for weakness, which is something that's really hard to do because there's not really a lot of viable cards right now that hit him for weakness. So let's say you have him active, Raikou on your bench, Magnezone on your bench, or you already have energy on Mew. You can accelerate energy to Mew as long as you have 3. It's the same thing like you're dealing with Mega Rayquaza when you're dealing with Mega Mewtwo. You're hitting for weakness. You're dealing 110 base damage with 3 energy, with the 50 base damage, and so you're one-shotting Mega Mewtwo with a basic, 50 HP basic. So those are really cool things, you know, to pay attention to. This deck, depending on how you go with it, if you go with Rough Seas and Octillery, Fighting Fury Belts, and things like that, it can get a little bit more expensive. It'll be more expensive than Lucario deck, but we're still not breaking the bank really with this deck. And a lot of the cards, they're easy to find. They're just sitting in people's binders, things like that. Obviously, you can go a little bit more pricier, like I said, with the Octillery and the Rough Seas, maybe Pikachu EX or Jolteon EX, things like that. Another benefit to this deck, same thing with Lucario deck that I didn't mention, is you're not really running a high EX count, if any. So they're going to have to knock out 6 annoying basic Pokemon while you're taking 2 prizes, and they're only taking 1. So that's good to mention, good to be aware of. But I think this is a deck that potentially could be very strong, especially for the budget. All right, next up we have Yveltal. Yveltal is a deck. It's always been around. It's classic. Dark is always strong. Every format, you know, whether it be standard, expanded, it's always had its moments. And, you know, it's just a good archetype. It's easy to run. There's not a lot of complications with it. Basically, you have Yveltal EX, you load energy on him, and he does scalable damage based on the amount of energy on him, and your opponent. So, with enough energy, you can start dealing heavy damage to Mewtwo's and things like that. You got Baby Yveltal with Oblivion Wing, accelerate energy to the bench. And then you got Fright Night Yveltal, which is my personal favorite. While he's active, all Pokemon tools are ineffective, so no more Spirit Links, Fighting Fury Belts, things like that. So the deck, it just works very well. You can throw a Fighting Fury Belt on Yveltal EX, and you have a 210 Pokemon. It's basically a Mega Pokemon at that point. But, your worry is with their weakness, which is Lightning, and especially with all the Ray running around, people are splashing in Zipstrika and things like that. But you don't really have to worry. All you really are doing is Darkness Energy and then double Colorless Energy, and that's really it. You can base the whole deck around just these 3 Pokemon. And just a point, I included this Yveltal EX because this is probably the cheapest one. There's other variations of this. There's another Yveltal EX, which is a promo, which is probably similar in the price range. They're about $253, which is super cheap. But then it also goes up higher than that. There's the shiny Yveltal from the tins, which is sitting like $10 right now. And then you've got the full art, obviously, which is super expensive, so avoid that. And then, Baby Yveltal's pretty cheap. Fright Night Yveltal's pretty cheap. So this is another super cheap deck. You can go more expensive running Max Elixirs and things like that, which obviously help with your consistency. Max Elixir is expensive though, so that's something you have to be wary of. You can also throw in things like Zoroark in here, which work really well with it. Zoroark's a little expensive. We'll be covering Zoroark a little bit more later. I've also seen variations of this with Yveltal and Raikou, being able to scale your damage based on your bench. Just different things like that. But Yveltal's a very strong thing. Another thing, interestingly, you can throw Mew in this deck as well. Especially if you're copying Yveltal EX's ability, attack. Start one-shotting those Mega Mewtwo Ys. Alright, next up is Scizor Garbodor. Depending on when you're watching this video, kind of depends on the price range of this deck. I went ahead and included just the basic versions of Scizor EX and Mega Scizor EX. There are full arts. Those are way more expensive. Right now, Scizor EX is sitting at $325, $350, and Mega Scizor is $6 or $7. So again, it's not the cheapest, but it's cheaper, especially if you're only running a 3-3 line of a Scizor and Scizor EX. Garbodor is super cheap. This deck has very good matchups with 2 of the higher early decks of the format, at least. Speaking of Mega Ray and Mega Mewtwo, being able to just, discard energies, 2-shot everything on a relatively bulky 220 body in the Mega is really strong. You're not really running a lot of Pokemon. Scizor is going to be where a lot of the price is going to come from the deck, but having Garbodor on the bench, blocking abilities and things like that is really well. It goes really well. Alternatively, you could drop the Garbodor and run Magearna and the Cobalion. Magearna's got the ability that prevents effects of attack to your Steel Energy equipped Pokemon, so you can block out damage change from Mewtwo and things like that. But again, this is one of those up and coming decks, so depending on when you're watching this, the price points could be going up dramatically. So if it's something you're interested in, I suggest jumping on it quickly, but definitely look at getting the regular arts. Alright, next up, Rainbow Road Xerneas. This is another deck. Depending on when you're watching this, some of the prices are increasing, especially on the Rainbow Force Xerneas. And depending on some of the dual types have a little bit of different price ranges and things like that. But basically the concept is almost the polar opposite of the Fight Alone Lucario deck that we profiled a little earlier. With Xerneas, your Rainbow Force attack, it does 30 more damage for each different type of Pokemon on your bench. So you pair that with things like Skyfield, which opens up your bench up to 8 Pokemon, and then all these dual type Pokemon that were released in Steam Siege. So I just threw Galvantula on here, but you don't necessarily have to run Galvantula, but it's a stage 1, so it gets out there pretty quickly. But just by having Galvantula, not Galvantula, Galvantula on the bench, that's another 60 damage right there, because he counts as both a lightning and a grass type. There's several different dual type Pokemon that you can use, but so for every dual type Pokemon that you have on the bench, 60 damage. So every additional Pokemon that you have on the bench that you don't already have, you're dealing more damage. You can run things like Bisharp and Volcanion, Marill, or Azumarill, different things like that. And so you're just dealing ridiculous amounts of damage just by having Pokemon sitting on your bench. So it's pretty strong. Again, the Xerneas is going up in price, but this is a card, months ago wasn't seen a lot. So a lot of people just have it. It's kind of sitting in benches or sitting in binders and boxes and things like that. It's probably easier to find. Side note, while looking for some of these online, I was having a problem finding the Rainbow Force Xerneas, so that's something to keep in mind. Alright, next up, and this is the last deck we're going to profile today, or just going to look at, is Roarke. Zoroark's a very strong deck. It's always been strong. Its stand-in ability, it's like Helio EX, rush in, retreat with float stones and things like that. You're always like maneuvering around the bench. And then its attack, Mind Jack, is really strong. If you're going up against something like Mega Rayquaza or Rainbow Force Xerneas, who want to load up their bench, you can deal more damage by them loading up their bench. Similarly, with the Fightalone Lucario, you can throw in like Captivating Pokepuff and things like that to force them to load up their bench. Pairing it with Skyfield and things like that to deal more damage. Zoroark is a little pricey. They're sitting at like $9-10 right now. You can find them probably cheaper. I know on eBay I've been able to find them a little cheaper, things like that. A lot of people have them, so they're pretty good to trade with and things like that. But you can pair Zoroark with Eevee and things like that and have a really good core dark deck, which works very well with Zoroark being your heavy price card and things like that. But again, it's still cheaper than a Mewtwo or Mega Ray deck by far. 3 Zoroark is cheaper than 1 Mega Mewtwo Y right now. So just keep that in mind. And another thing I want to kind of steer people in the direction of are the Battle Arena decks. This one in particular, the Keldeo and Rayquaza, is coming out here near the end of September. These decks, generally I would not recommend people to buy sealed theme decks and things like that, licensed decks released by Pokemon, because usually they're crap, especially for what you're paying for them. But these are interesting because these sit at $30 and they come jam-packed with staples. Like this one specifically will include 2 VS Seekers, I think nearly a playset of Sycamores, Lysanders, Ultra Balls, all that really good stuff that you need. I can't remember whether it has trainer mails in it or not, but it may. But there's several different variations of these. This is the most recent one that's coming out. This one's a little bit more relevant because this one also will be including the new promo card Karen, which is the only way to get that card. So prices on that card will also go up. But again, these are $30. It's pretty good value. Especially if you're looking to get into Expanded, you'll get the Keldeo and things like that. Keldeo is always a good card in Expanded. Rayquaza is a standard card. It goes in the Rayquaza, Mega Rayquaza deck, but it's a very small piece of that deck. But anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to throw out a shout out to these, because depending on what staples you do or do not have, this could be an alternative, a good alternative to get those all in one package, especially like with the VS Seekers and the Karen and things like that. So depending on the values, depending on what you need it for, if you've been playing for a while, you've probably already have all these staples, so you might steer clear of this. But if you're a newer player, you've got some cards, you don't have a lot of the staple cards. It might be something worth looking into. Also, like I said, there are different variations of this. There's a Mewtwo EX Darkrai version of this that also has VS Seekers. Both of those Mewtwo and Darkrai are expanded only. And then there is the Xerneas Eevee one. I'm not actually sure about which version of the Xerneas in the Eevee one is in the decks. And I want to say VS Seeker is not in those decks. The Xerneas Darkrai one. But again, just to keep in mind, this is the one I would be looking for, probably because of Karen, the Keldeo, and Rayquaza Battle Arena deck. I want to say it comes out September 21st or 24th, something in that ballpark. But yeah. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you think about these budget decks. What decks do y'all see being in the future? Cheaper, things like that. Let me know what you think about all the inflation in card prices right now. I know that's kind of a hot button topic right now. It's kind of ridiculous, but bear with it. It'll come down. Give me a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you want me to do a direct profile on any of these decks I've mentioned. Some of these I've already talked about I'm going to do profiles on, but if there's one specifically, let me know and I can start working on that a little quicker. But that's all I've got, so I will see y'all next time.